A breaking news here in the Cardano ecosystem. We've got the SEC and the NYSE coming together to acknowledge the recent filing that was done on February 10th by Grayscale to launch an ETP or an ADA-only trust offering Cardano to institutional investors and retail users alike. Now we're going to be breaking down the significance of this update and talking about key dates when this could potentially be approved. Oh, what's up, Ada Nation? Welcome into Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. An exciting day here as we got the continuation of the saga when it comes to Grayscale's recent filing for the first ever Cardano-backed or the Cardano Reserved Trust that they'll be hosting, providing access to institutional grade investors and retail users. Now we're going to also highlight some key and some important dates here. As always, if it's your first time stopping by, my goal is to help you find your footing here within the Cardano and Bitcoin ecosystems. If you appreciate content just like this, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up on the way in. If you want more, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to voice off down below. Now, I'm also a stake pool operator here within the Cardano ecosystem. If you'd like to extend your support for the channel, consider delegating with either of the two Dapp Central stake pools, with both share the ticker DAPP. Without any further ado, we're jumping right on in. If you've missed it, this was back on the 10th of February, breaking news, where we have the official proposal coming out from Grayscale to list and trade shares under the NYSE for their first ever announced Grayscale Cardano Trust. Now, I broke this down in a lot of detail, but this is an ADA-only trust, one of the first ever done by Grayscale. Now, we've seen other fund managers put out and actually host their own ETPs or ETFs, but this one is different given the size of Grayscale and the reputation of this particular asset manager. They've got billions, right, of assets currently under management, and to see Cardano being listed would make a huge change here in terms of visibility and access for Cardano. Now, what did we recently get? Well, we have the acknowledgement of the filing by Grayscale now being done by the SEC. So there's going to be a new document, or there is a new document that's actually just been released. We're going to dive right on into that now. But then I want to highlight some key dates here as it relates to the proposal and the review and the comment process by the SEC. So again, just because Grayscale has filed for this doesn't make this law. It doesn't make it rejected or approved. It's just that, the filing. So now that we've got the filing out of the way, it shows that obviously Grayscale has some sort of intent to support Cardano, but we need the SEC to actually buy in and approve this. We saw a very similar process with the Bitcoin ETF and the ETH ETF, which were both approved now roughly about a year ago. And so the first thing I want to highlight here is that this was submitted or filed or acknowledged by the SEC on the 24th of February. As I'm shooting this video, it's the 25th. Again, if you guys appreciate timely and just news-based updates here, make sure to turn on those bell notifications and smash that thumbs up. The first thing I want to highlight here is the fact that this again reiterates the listing for their Cardano ADA Trust, which is a commodity-based trust share. So they've already sort of touched on the fact that Cardano is a commodity, not a security, which was by far one of the biggest hurdles that not just Cardano, but just altcoins in general faced when Gary Gensler was the SEC chairman roughly about a year to 2 years ago. Obviously, things have changed since then, but it's a really good turning point here to see the fact that the SEC and the fact that Grayscale is acknowledging that Cardano is a commodity. So that's the first thing I want to highlight. Now, continuing on, it highlights the fact that on the 10th of February, again, we have Grayscale, which filed with the SEC a proposed rule change to list and trade shares of the Grayscale Cardano ADA Trust. Now, there's a fully dedicated breakdown here, which again highlights every little bit of nuance about Cardano, how payments work, staking, just the network decentralization, etc. But there's two minor pieces that I want to briefly highlight and review here. And so one is with respect to the decentralization of the network. And then the second is talking about just the blockchain and how rewards and transactions are captured and validated. So it states here the Cardano network is decentralized and does not require governmental authorities or financial institutions or intermediaries to create, transmit, or determine the value of ADA. This is a big piece here because, again, we've seen other networks which aren't decentralized get rejected when it comes to their application filings. And so the fact that we already have Grayscale acknowledging this, this is now being acknowledged by the SEC. This is positive. And of course, this is on the heels of the recent approval and confirmation of the Cardano Constitution and the enactment of the Plowman hard fork, which is now set in motion, right? Full decentralized governance, meaning Cardano is fully run by the community. So if you aren't already invested in either being a direct voter or delegating your ADA to a DREP, you want to make sure to go ahead and do so now so your voice can be heard if you're an ADA holder. Now, in closing, the last piece that I want to quickly highlight here before we talk about some of the key and important dates is the fact that it states here that similar to the Ethereum network, new ADA is created and rewarded to validators or SPOs of the Cardano blockchain for verifying transactions. The Cardano blockchain is effectively a decentralized database or ledger that includes all blocks that have been validated, and it's currently being updated to include new blocks in real time as those are continuously and also validated. Of course, I'll leave the link to this particular document down below. But the next thing I want to briefly touch on with the fact that we've got the SEC acknowledging and beginning their review process, what dates do we need to keep in mind if this will be approved? So let's dive right on in here, and shout out to Cardano with Paul here for grabbing this information here. Make sure to go ahead and give him a follow on his channel if you aren't already doing so. He provides a lot of valuable ADA and Cardano content, just like I do here. So we've got the initial filing and the amendment dates. Again, that took place, the initial filing by Grayscale on the 10th of February. On the 20th is when we saw an amendment being submitted, replacing the original filing. Again, on the 24th, with the document that we just reviewed, we have the SEC officially publishing their document for public comment. Now, moving forward, what can we expect? Well, we have the public comment and review periods where we have a 21-day period for public comments, which based off of the existing dates that we have now, which will end around the 17th of March. And this allows for institutions, investors, and other stakeholders to submit their views and comments to the SEC about the actual ADA trust or the ADA fund. In addition, or following that, we have the SEC's initial decision deadline, which is 45 days from publication, and that'll give us or land us around the 10th of April for 2025. Now, the SEC at that point has the ability to either approve, reject, or extend their review for the Grayscale Cardano Trust filing. So those are the key dates that we want to keep in mind there, and exactly what we're going to be looking forward to. Now, in recapping here for this update, it's really important to understand that the SEC and Grayscale have acknowledged that Cardano is fully decentralized. It doesn't require on any of the three founding entities in order to govern how the chain develops moving forward, which is obviously extremely important here. Many blockchains have to fit that requirement in order to actually be classified as a vehicle where people can invest in that isn't a security. Now, in addition, this also leaves the door open to the fact that Cardano could be listed or included as one of the many crypto assets, right, within the US backed reserve or the US based treasury, which Trump has obviously put his crypto working group together for in terms of investigating the feasibility and the possibility and just the benefit of that particular idea. So no obviously concrete decision yet. I think we obviously will all start with Bitcoin, and then people then looking at ETH for any sort of reserve or national treasury. But then after that, what comes next? I think Cardano is at the very top of that list. Of course, there could also be some other blockchains like Solana, etc. But from a utility, decentralization, and security perspective, Cardano has to be on that list, in my personal opinion. Of course, let me know what you think down below. Now, I want to end off here by just briefly touching on a couple of benefits and some potential downsides here as it relates to the ADA Trust or the Grayscale ETF and what it has to offer. So I'll kick things off here with pros. Obviously, this makes it easier for institutions to jump into Cardano, making it that much more investable and lowering the barrier to entry into the particular asset. It also allows for higher liquidity and increased market exposure, given the fact that liquidity, whether we hate it or love it, a lot of it is stuck with traditional finance. Big banks, institutions, they sit on a lot of cash. And once they have the ability to invest in ADA without having to worry about regulatory hurdles, that's obviously going to boost Cardano price action and also increase liquidity in Cardano. Now, it also, I think, boosts legitimacy and also makes Cardano that much more mainstream, given the fact that not many people have an existing Grayscale trust for one particular asset. If Cardano is able to be one of those assets, I think it just solidifies Cardano's position here within the top 10 that much more or that much further. A lot of people continue to FUD Cardano, but this is a long-term game here, and Cardano is making sure to build things the right way and to measure twice and to cut once. Moving on, we've got regulatory clarity and compliance, easier access for retail investors, which all concludes to more demand for Cardano ADA, therefore meaning higher price action. So let me know what you guys think down below in terms of some of those pros there. In closing, I do want to highlight some minor cons. The first and the biggest is obviously the risks for centralization and custodian risks. So if I'm not mistaken, Grayscale will most likely work with Binance or Coinbase. If I'm not mistaken, they've already got some ETFs which are already custodied or managed through Coinbase. And the fact that Coinbase is mainly US based makes me think that that's probably going to be the initial go-to for a custodian. But of course, we're going to have to wait and get some exact details once we've got the approval or rejection from the SEC. Now, having said that, there is a mention there within the actual filing or the remarks by the SEC that highlights the security and the fact that there has to be multi-sigs with multiple factor authentication in place for wherever the actual underlying ADA backing the trust will be held at. So there are some strict guidelines around that, especially after we've just seen Bybit, one of the biggest crypto exchanges, get over $1.4 billion worth of ETH removed from their platform due to a phishing attack, even though they also had a multi-sig in place. So it just goes to show that regardless of who you are susceptible to fraud, especially social engineering in the crypto and blockchain space. An additional con, obviously there's some possible selling pressure. We've seen a lot of different tokens when they list on pretty big exchanges. It's typically followed by a lot of selling pressure, given the fact that, you know, existing holders are looking to off-sell or offload as new buyers jump in, given the hype or the announcement around a potential listing. And so that could be a bit of downside. I know with the Bitcoin ETF, we saw increased price action, but with the ETH ETF, at least right around the initial launch, we did see price actually go down before rebounding and making new higher highs. Now, one other thing that I want to briefly highlight here is the fact that with the ETP or the ETF or the trust, there could be higher management fees. Now, this is all because this is being done through Grayscale. So Grayscale obviously has to make some sort of fee or some sort of revenue in order to even offer or to even be incentivized to offer this product. And so they're charging a management fee, right? Very similar to sort of like a transaction fee in the ecosystem. We will see management fees. We just wanted to make sure that those are relatively minute, right? Compared to how much ADA you're actually investing and the potential upside in terms of returns. In closing, keep in mind that with respect to this particular ETF, there hasn't been any mention of staking rewards and whether or not those will also be compounded. So that is a minor downside or con here with this particular trust, is the fact that there will not be staking rewards. Now, I believe that there was a separate ETF filing or ETP filing, which did include the Cardano staking rewards. I'll have to go back and dig that up here. There's just been so many filings as of late, but we could potentially see Grayscale adopting or switching their stance when it comes to staking and whether or not they'll include staking rewards for their investors as a part of their trust. In closing, we have just potential market manipulation and governance scares with someone like Grayscale. If they're able to scoop up a lot of ADA, that means that they could too actually use that ADA to vote for or against different governance actions in the ecosystem. Now, this also applies to different crypto exchanges, for example, Binance, Coinbase, etc. They also hold ADA. They operate stake pools. They are just as capable of being shareholders or stakeholders and actually using their ADA to voice their opinions in Cardano governance. So that could be a potential issue in the future. Do we need some sort of rules and regulation within the Cardano constitution around that? That's a whole nother conversation, but I'd love to hear your take on exactly how you think that that should be handled moving forward. Now, that'll do it here for today's update. Again, touching on the fact that the SEC has officially acknowledged Grayscale's ETF filing for their Cardano-based trust. We'll have to wait a little bit longer, but hopefully this has been some valuable information to you guys as to what key dates we need to keep in mind and when we could potentially see this first ever ADA ETF or ADA trust being approved. That'll do it here for this particular update. As always, if you've enjoyed content just like this, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If you want more, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave those down below. That said, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.